I never imagined that my quiet high-rise condo in downtown Seattle would become the setting for a full-blown legal drama. For 6 years, I'd lived in my place peacefully, mortgage paid off, bills up to date, zero issues. But 3 days ago, everything turned upside down. It all started when Karen, the newly elected HOA president, showed up at my door in broad daylight. And yes, that Karen, the type everyone avoids in the lobby. She strutted down the hall, heels clicking like she owned the building, and announced with a smug little smirk, "You'll need to vacate next week. My guest will be staying here." At first I laughed, assuming it was a bad joke, but the way her eyes narrowed told me she wasn't joking at all. My gut twisted. This wasn't just arrogance, this was a threat. I managed to keep my voice steady. "Karen, you have no legal authority to take my condo. You can't just—" She cut me off instantly. "Oh, but I can. It's in the bylaws. Guests of board members may use underutilized units." "Vacant," I snapped back. "I live here, Karen." Her tone dripped with fake pity. "Yes, but you're often traveling. You barely use this place." The audacity left me speechless. I slammed the door before I said something that would get me in trouble, but inside, my heart was pounding. Something told me this wasn't empty bluster. She was planning something bigger. That night, I pulled out my HOA paperwork and combed through every page. I found nothing about guest accommodations, but I did find Section 14.3. Falsifying HOA documents is grounds for removal and possible criminal charges. I tucked that away like a loaded weapon. The next morning, I overheard whispers in the lobby. Neighbors said I had agreed to let Karen's guest stay in my condo. My blood ran cold. Within hours, a neighbor forwarded me an email Karen had sent to the board. Attached was a so-called occupancy agreement with my forged signature. The handwriting was wrong. The date format wasn't mine. And the witness signature? Some guy named Bill K? I'd never even heard of. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was fraud. I could have confronted her, but instead I decided to let her dig her own grave. I emailed the board CCing her. "Karen, thank you for your interest in my condo. However, I am not offering it for use. The attached agreement is not mine and contains a forged signature. Any further attempt to use it will be treated as fraud and reported to the police." Her reply was immediate. "You're overreacting. The board has already approved the arrangement. The guest arrives Friday." Oh, Karen. Friday night, I set my plan in motion. I called the police, gave them the forged document, and asked for a property watch. Just past midnight, I woke up to the sound of my front door lock being tampered with. Heart racing, I peered through the peehole. There she was, Karen, hair messy, hoodie pulled up, crouched at my door with a man I'd never seen before, a wiry guy carrying a suitcase, her so-called guest. "Hurry up, Bill, before anyone sees us," she hissed. That's when the hallway filled with flashing red and blue. SEPT officers stepped out from the stairwell, badges raised. "Seattle police, step away from the door!" Karen froze, caught mid-pick. Bill dropped the suitcase with a thud. I opened my door slowly, leaning on the frame. "Evening, Karen. Lose your key?" Her face drained of color. She stammered about a legal agreement. The officer shut her down instantly. They had already reviewed the forged document I'd provided. Within minutes, both she and her guest were cuffed and escorted out. Karen screamed I'd regret this, but I just smiled. I doubt it. By morning, the whole building knew. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, and with Karen absent, they voted unanimously to remove her from her position. The new president, Harris, even apologized to me personally. But the real twist came later that week. A detective called me. Apparently, this wasn't Karen's first scam. 2 years ago, she'd tried the same trick in another building, using forged agreements to let her guests move into empty condos. That time, the victim lived overseas and never pursued charges. This time, she wasn't so low-key. She was charged with burglary, fraud, and criminal trespass. Her guest, Bill, turned out to have a criminal rap sheet a mile long. Some neighbors whispered I had gone too far, that I could just have refused and moved on. But let me ask you, what would you do if someone tried to steal your home with a fake contract in a midnight break-in? In my book, that isn't HOA drama, that's war. And Karen lost the courtroom showdown. The courthouse smelled like stale coffee and old paper. Karen sat at the defense table in a stiff navy pantsuit, her hair slicked back so tightly it made her look like a caricature of herself. She kept darting glances at me with this bitter little smirk, like she still believed she could intimidate me. The prosecutor laid it all out. The forged documents, my notarized statement, police body cam footage showing her caught red-handed. Each piece of evidence clicked into place like nails in her coffin. Her lawyer tried spinning it as a misunderstanding. The jury wasn't buying it, especially not with Bill's criminal record and her fingerprints on my lock. When the verdict came back guilty on all counts, Karen's mask slipped. Her jaw clenched so hard her temple twitched. The judge sentenced her to probation, restitution for my legal fees, and a restraining order keeping 200 feet away from me and my condo. On top of that, the HOA board slapped her with a civil lawsuit for reputational damages. By the time it was over, she wasn't just disgraced, she was broke, powerless, and banned from the community she once tried to control. Weeks later, her name disappeared from the HOA directory. Parking space sat empty. The new board even sent out a memo promising residents that nothing like this would ever happen again. And as for Karen, last I heard, she moved into a cramped rental far from any HOA. No board meetings, no fake authority, no power trips. Just silence. And let me tell you, justice has a way of echoing long after the gavel falls.